Hello and welcome to the last spreadsheets tutorial using Google Sheets. This one's more of a whirlwind tour of some advanced functionality in Google Sheets. We're going to look at some of the more complicated functions. We're going to look at revisit absolute references, and we're going to look at how to add extra functionality to Google Sheets using add-ons. In particular, we're going to add an add-on that a programmer has created that adds the what-if analysis functionality from Microsoft Excel to Google Sheets. So you can even check out the course, the source code for it here. It's all here, and this does the what-if analysis using Google Script, or whatever the heck programming language this is. It's really slick and it works really well, and it does almost exactly the same thing as what Excel does. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. The start file looks like this, and this video is the only instruction you'll get on this tutorial. So you want to make a copy, and we will save it in our ITECH 150 folder. Oops, my drive, ITECH 150. And we'll just call it advanced functions, advanced features, whatever. You can call it whatever you want, doesn't matter. Okay, so let's go through these kind of one by one. The first one we want to talk about is the if function. So what we want to be able to do in this sheet, let's say this is like a sheet that has, the only columns that we're actually really that concerned with are these two. We want this column to say, to reflect this fact. Any of these donors who has donated $50 or more should receive a free gift, and we want to mark those using this. So we're going to use a function called if. Let's zoom in just a little bit here. Looks like somebody's playing Terraria. Go. Oh wait, no, I don't want to do that. Go. All right. So we're going to scroll over just a little bit here and take a peek. The if function looks like this. I think there's a way for me to add some open war. Yeah, here we go. So the if function has the following syntax. So you always start with the equal sign, and then of course if. And then in parentheses, it takes three parameters. Let's actually do this on the whiteboard itself. Equals, if, and then it takes three parameters. It takes some sort of logical test that is some kind of condition that is either true or false. It has to be something that is definitely true or definitely false. So T or F. It has to be some sort of a question that answers this question. Is it true or is it false? Then here it'll be the value if true. So if this turns out to be true, this is what will be printed. If this turns out to be false, then this is what will be printed. So we have three values: a logical test, a value if true, and a value if false. That is what the that's what it does. That's what the what if function does. Let's see here. Let's go get rid of open board. Okay. So how do we do this? We can just type it in by hand. It's not super difficult to do. Again, we're doing a formula, so we want to start with an equal sign. The name of the function is if, and you see here it has the description returns value depending on a logical expression. So if we open the parentheses, we have this tooltip which kind of explains how to walk through this thing. So the first parameter is this logical expression, and it says an expression or reference to a cell containing an expression that represents some logical value, i.e. something that is true or false. What we want to know is if this number is greater than or equal to 50. So we'll go if this number, G2, is greater than or equal to, you can't do the greater than sign with an equal sign underneath it. So we just do greater than. We do a greater than sign and an equal sign. And let's say greater than or equal to 50. So that's our logical test. That's either true or it's false, comma. So that moves us to the next parameter, value of true. The value the function returns if the logical expression is true. So if this is true, we want it to say, get our insertion point in there, we want it to say free gift. And now the value, if this is not true, if this is false, well, we just want it to say nothing. So we're going to put empty quotation marks there, so just nothing will display. Close our parentheses, hit enter. Well, this person gets a free gift. Let's use the fill handle to copy this all the way down to the bottom of the table. And then we can quickly, at a glance, see all of the people who are getting a free gift. So that's kind of how the if function works. You can use this to do all sorts of things of this nature. Let's do another conditional thing. Let's check out here, the SUMIF function. So ITECH Corp has a bunch of salespeople who might have names that you might find familiar. And each one of those people made a sale, and each one of those units, so this is random fake data. So each one of these people sold some number of units at this price. So this right here is a calculated field using a relative reference to this and an absolute reference to the unit cost to get a total price. What I want to show you guys is how to do what's called a SUMIF function. That's what this sheet is called. So type your name in here. Your names are on here, so you should be able to use it to use that to find out how much your personal sales are. So we can go like this. So when we type in a function, remember Google Sheets will actually give us some advice. So SUMIF, we don't want multiple criteria, we just want the one criteria. So SUMIF function looks like this. And it takes 3 parameters, some range of values, some criteria, and then the range that we're actually going to try to sum. So our first range is the range that we're going to test against. We want to find your name in this column. So we're going to use that. Whoops. Here's our range, is this part right here. So it should say SUMIF B6 to B55, comma. Okay, now our criterion is going to be, well, is that your name? Use your name. I think everybody's name is in this list somewhere. And if it isn't, then I apologize. I double and triple checked and made sure. And then the sum range, the range of values that we're trying to add together, are this column. So it should be looking relatively like this. Close the parentheses and hit enter. And so I made 32,684. And you should have a different value here depending on what name you put in there. One thing you could do is something like this. If you put your name in there, you could just have that be the value. And then I could put Dan here, or Billy, or Josephine, and you'll see a different result. So pretty slick. Give you some sort of like total based on the value of whatever's in this. So we're deciding whether or not to add a number in this column based on whatever the value is in this column for that row, which is cool. Here's a absolute references sheet. Now this should be somewhat familiar for anybody that's taken this class before. I'm going to zoom out slightly. There's nothing that's going to be super different here, except that you do have to think kind of carefully about how you're going to do this first row and then copy it down to fill the rest of this this sheet. And it's not super difficult. It's not super crazy. But you are going to need to think carefully. So let me actually resize some of these columns here. There we go. Regular pay, is going to be hourly rate times regular hours. Overtime pay is going to be hourly rate times overtime hours times time and a half times the overtime rate. But think very carefully, because these two should be relative references, but this one needs to be absolute because we always want to use this value. So that's going to need them dollar signs. and that'll give us that. Your gross pay is going to be the sum of those two. And then we have 3 different kinds of taxes. We've got FICA, state tax, federal tax rate. Obviously, these are arbitrarily chosen values that are not true or reflective of how our actual tax system works using marginal tax rates. But for this simple example, it's just fine. You're going to need to figure out how to put these 3 formulas in. I kind of gave you the hint with the overtime pay and using absolute references. But in order to get these, you're going to need to use these values and probably some absolute references. I'm going to suggest that you stop the video right now or pause the video and give it a shot yourself, and I will come back when I'm done. And welcome back. This is what I have. What did I do? What did I do? What is this value? I don't know why I did that. I don't know. So I have this. These are my values, and I got my formulas here, and then this one I just subtracted these 3 from that to get the final result, and now we are going to triumphantly fill in the rest of the table. Getting the totals is super simple in Sheets. You want to select the entire column here down to here. Hit your sum function, and it should just appear in that cell. And then we can copy and paste this over. Boom. Which is cool. So there's all your totals. This is how much money goes to each of these things. So what we're going to do with this, once this is all filled in, we want to use it to create a sort of automated pay stub system. So to do that, we're going to use the VLOOKUP function. So the VLOOKUP function is very, very interesting. First, we want to catch a reference to one of our employees' names. So we're going to use this guy. Okay, so that's that person's name. Now, we want to get these values from the other sheet based on this person's name. So we want to know how many regular hours they worked. So this is going to use the vertical lookup function, which is going to look for certain it's going to look for a certain value on some certain range using an index. Here, I'll explain what it is. So the search key is the value we want to look for. So we want to look for the person's name. The range is the range that we're going to consider for our search. So the first column in the range is searched for the key in the search key part. So what we want to do, our range is going to be the entire data table back on the previous sheet. So with the insertion point blinking right there, we'll go back here and say this is the entire range that we want to search. And we want to search for the value in this cell, which is this person's name at the moment. And then the last parameter is going to be, so it's going to search it's going to search the first column of this range that we've selected. So it's going to search here for that person's name. It's going to find it here. And then the last parameter is going to be the index of some column. Now we assume that the first column, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. I don't know why it uses a numerical index rather than a letter value, but that is what it does. So the index for regular hours is going to be column 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4. And then if we hit enter, it should give us 40. I don't know why it's doing it in dollars. It should be dollars. It should be just a number. Oh, no, it shouldn't be plain text. It should be a number. There we go. Let's do the same thing. You got to do the same thing on these ones. So VLOOKUP, follow the same thing. We want to look for this person, comma. We want to select the entire table, comma. And this time we want overtime hours, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll put a 5. And then hit enter. And that should give us, why is that in something other than that? These should be percentages, and these should be money. And these should be money, and this should be money. Okay, just making sure the formats are right. Okay, so the rate is going to be VLOOKUP so-and-so, comma, select the whole table. Regular rate is going to be a 1, 2, 3, comma, 3, parenthesis, enter. Oh no, these should be just numbers. Format. Actually, these should be money. Yeah, $13 an hour. Does that match up? $13 an hour. Yeah. And then the same thing will be here. We just want to, we can cheat on some of these. We can say equals this times the overtime rate, which is fine. And you can cheat on these too. You can say this times this. And you can say equals this times this. And for these ones, to get this value, you could just sum these guys together. And that's just fine. And then for this one, let's do this. Let's cheat a little bit here. We're gonna once again look up. We're gonna do a VLOOKUP here. We're going to grab this table. And then we want the FICA rate, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So, comma 9. And then I'm going to make this an absolute reference and this an absolute reference. And then let's see what we can do here. Enter. If we can copy this down, it should go 9, 10. I didn't do it. Okay. So we'll just change this to a 10. And this one to an 11. And then one last time, we'll go down here and change this to a 12 to get the last value. And that's how you do it. So now, the real test of this thing is what happens if I change this to some other employee. So in here, I hit equals, I go here, and I try this person and hit enter. And then the whole thing changes. If you want to see it happen more real time, say 10. And you see the whole pay stub change. So you could theoretically just input each person's name in here and then print off a pay stub based on the resulting values. And this becomes a totally reusable spreadsheet because of that. So once it's complete, these should just play around with it a little bit, and you should be able to see that these things change. Oh yeah, these are supposed to be switched. These will be switched in the final version that you will see. So the annual interest, so we're going to create a calculator that does home loans. This video might get a little bit long. So let's say we're going to buy a house and we want to use a calculator that will calculate our monthly payment. So let's say we have an annual interest rate of, say, 5%. Let's say maybe that's a reasonable value, 5%. Well, how many payments do you make per year? 1 per month, so 12. So what we're going to do is we're going to create down here is we're going to create a function where if I change any of these values, it will reflect that in what the monthly payment will be. So I can kind of gauge how much I can actually afford. So interest rate per pay period is actually going to be the interest rate divided by the number of payments per year. That's how much interest you'll pay per year. It's a very small number, and it should be a percentage, 0.42%. The total number of years, let's say we're going to do a 30-year mortgage, pretty standard. So the total number of payments is going to be the number of years times the number of payments per year, 360 payments total. And let's say I bought a house for $123,000. Let's just say that has commas in it. Well, let's say it's money. Let's just say it's money. There we go. Get rid of them. Get rid of them decimal places. Okay, so here is where we're going to do this. So we're going to go, actually, let's do this way. Let's find it in here. So this is a financial function. We're going to go down here. We're going to find it. It's called PMT, Periodic Payment for an Annuity Investment. So if we click on it, it'll insert it into the cell, and then it'll give us some, you can see the working function up here. And then it gives us a number of parameters that we want to put in. Some of these are optional. So in our case, these are all clearly marked. So the interest rate is the interest rate per pay period. So that's going to be this one, comma. The number of periods, which will be 360, comma. And then the principal value, comma. So at this rate, our monthly payment will be $660.29, which is pretty cool. So now I can play around with this with a higher interest rate. Obviously, your payment's going to go up. If you got a lower interest rate, like 2%, you can actually see just how much. You can get a really low interest rate if you do like a 15-year mortgage and slightly higher payments. So yeah, you can do all sorts of interesting things with this calculator and find out what. Well, let's say I got a more expensive house. So you can really get a sense for how much your monthly payment is going to be. Of course, it doesn't include escrow stuff or whatnot, but I'm not a banker, so I don't know how to calculate that stuff. I do know how to do a few of these things, and if you look through some of these other ones, you can probably Google or even just read the descriptions on some of these things to find out what they do. And most functions in here do all sorts of really cool stuff. They do all sorts of different interesting statistical formulas, functional stuff, or financial things, engineering formulas, various lookup things which we already did. Yeah, there's a lot of really interesting stuff in here that you can look through, and maybe you won't understand all of it, but you'll probably be able to remember some of them. So now we're going to do something else. We're going to use. I have replicated the payment calculator right here. So this is a monthly payment for basically a 30-year loan. I mean, you can change these values if you want, and that's what we're going to do. We're actually going to play around with this and find out what these things are based on whether or not we're going to create what are called data tables. At least Excel calls them data tables. They don't exist in Sheets. So what we want to do is fill in this column with the value of this if the 5% changes. So the function's already set up. We have the payment function in here right now. What we want to do is fill in this table and these other three tables with the values, with the value of this. So this is just a reference to B9, which is this cell right here. So we want to know what this value is going to be at these different interest rates. We don't have a way to do this easily in Google Sheets, but we're going to add this add-on called What If. So go up into your add-ons, go to add-ons, get add-ons, and then we're going to search for What If. Type it in as one word and it'll pop up. I already have it installed, but you'll just click on it. It's pretty highly rated. It has only 18,000 installs, but that's, it's an open source project. It just adds this cool feature. Hit the install button. I'm not going to hit the uninstall button. It'll ask you for some permissions. It'll go through the thing. I looked at the code. It's totally legit. It doesn't really do anything. It's that one little really short script file that adds all this functionality. So it's pretty cool. So we will. So once it's installed, you can close out of this, and then it'll appear in your add-ons menu as a what if. I'm going to show you how to do this. Oh, it does have a help menu. There's a help that will help you learn how to do it, but I'm just going to show you. So what we want to do is we're going to do a single column what if analysis. We're going to copy this. So we want to select this whole table. So the table has to be of a certain format. The top left corner can be anything. This one has to be some value that we're testing, or that is the result of varying this number. So this one is our test. This column should have our test numbers. So we select these two columns. These are the test values, and these are going to be the results. So what it's going to do is it's going to plug in each of these values into this cell right here and see what the result is here, which is reflected here. So we select these cells, we go into add-ons, we go to what if, and we say create data table. Then we want to specify which is our column input cell. Well, that is this one right here, which is B5. So we actually have to type it. It won't let us click it, which is kind of annoying. But you type B5, you hit OK, and then watch this number change, and then boom, it fills it in. So it fills it in with all the values based on this, based on varying this number, which is super slick. We'll do the same thing On these two, go to add-ons, what if, create data table, and this time we want to change the term. So instead of a 30-year mortgage, we'll do 5 to 35. So that's cell B6. So B6, and hit OK. And then it will, boom, output all of those different. So these are all the basically your monthly payment if you have a 5-year mortgage versus a 35-year mortgage. Now what happens if we vary the principal? We have a cheaper house versus a more expensive house. So let's do add-on, what if, create data table, and this time it's cell B7. So we type B7 and hit OK. And you'll see the value change as it plugs in all those values and eventually come up with these monthly totals. So we can do this with a row and a column. So if you select more than 2 columns worth of cells, it will recognize what you're trying to do and act accordingly. So in this one, we're going to vary both the percentages, the interest percentage, and the term. So each one of these cells is going to be the resulting value if these 2 values are changed. So we can only do it 2-dimensionally. I encourage you to set it up so that you can vary the principal as well. But this was getting kind of long as it was. So I'm going to select this whole thing, the whole table, so cells B27 through H34. And then in my mind, so I want B5 and B6 are the 2 that we're going to vary, because you'd have to scroll up. So we'll go to add-on, we'll go to what if, we'll create a data table. And now, so B5 is the cell with the percentages, and then B6 is the number of months, or the term, the number of years. And so we hit OK, and you'll watch this thing go through a bunch of different values. So watch, the percentage will change, and it'll go through all the years again, the percentage will change. So it's getting all these values and storing them somewhere in memory, and then boom, it outputs it all to the table. So each one of these values is this is going to be your cheapest one right here. This is going to be your most expensive one. Yeah, right up here, 4,800. Highest interest rate, lowest number of years. Cheapest, most expensive monthly payment. So this is it. If you guys get this far, if you have this done, this is what you need to submit this. And I think oh yeah, I have it right here. If you get this far, you can go ahead and submit it, and I hope you found this kind of interesting as sort of like a little tour of all of the cool advanced functions and features. And you may have, if you took my ITECH 100 class, you may have seen some of this stuff before, or even a very similar tutorial to this one. But I think it's nice to go over it for computer apps too, because it's kind of a complicated. These are tricky things to do by hand, and they're difficult things. Like it took me years to find some of these features. Actually, yeah. Anyone with this link can comment, copy link, and we'll submit it. You can submit it that way, or you can go into Google Drive, the Google Drive tab on here, and find your ITECH 150 folder, and find it, what was it called? Advanced Features. Link. Submit. And that's it. We'll see you next time.